All right. Hello, everyone. I am Krista Haskins, and I am a holistic kinesiologist with Intuitive Mama Wellness. And I am here today to talk about igniting hope, muscle testing for everyday use. So let's start off first with what is muscle testing. The science of muscle testing was first developed in the early 1900s through an orthopedic surgeon. So it goes, over 100 years back. Then eventually physical therapists kind of took some of that and they continued that work. They came out with a book on muscle testing and function in '49. They were primarily working with polio victims, including children, and it turned into this new field of what is now called academic kinesiology, which is the study of movement. So it's the in-depth analysis of how muscles move bones. Applied kinesiology is a new realm that was developed more in the 60s by George Goodhart, and he was a chiropractor that started to find connections between how muscles moved and the organ and meridian systems in the body. How specific muscles would be related to other things. And that was an area that was not understood in the academic kinesiology realm. It just started to branch into this whole new thing. He found that a previously strong muscle would become weaker when a stressor was introduced, be it a disturbing thought, a harmful food, any sort of environmental stressor, or even touching on an area that was stressed or injured or something like that. So then an indicator muscle would lose strength. So today there's a bunch of different offshoots of applied kinesiology, whether it's muscle response testing, nutrition response testing, energy kinesiology. It all kind of fits under that same umbrella of using the muscle an indicator muscle to figure out where there's blockages in the body's flow of energy and things like that. It's a way to listen to the innate intelligence that runs the body, sort of a form of non-invasive biofeedback. So biofeedback is how we collect information from physiological responses in the body, and then what we do with it. So it's basically a fancy way of saying let's listen to the body. What's the biofeedback we're getting? There's a bunch of different kinds of information we can gather as biofeedback. So you can check heart rate variability, pulse, breath rate, muscle function, muscle activity. Any kind of body response is some sort of biofeedback. Even like people who have those like Oura rings or your smart watch that is tracking stuff. That's all biofeedback. The body is electrical. Like a circuit board, there can be breaks in the interference of the circuit that can affect energy flow, and we conduct that electricity. So I've got a little demo here. This is an energy stick. So if we could have everybody sort of touch the person next to you. Ideally skin, if you can do a hand to hand.
Okay, we'll do skin.
And then maybe I'll go closer to you. So I'll have you touch that, and we can have that circuit work. So now if somebody lets go, it stops, right? There's a break in the circuit, it's not working as well, and then as we connect up again, it turns on, right? So that gives us an idea. It takes you back to your, fourth grade science class where you're doing circuit boards and stuff. When there's a break in the circuit, the energy flow stops. And so that can happen within our bodies. We've got energy flowing, and if something gets off, there's an injury, there's a pathogen, something going on, that energy flow will can either break completely or it can just diminish. You can see how there's enough energy rolling that it kind of just reduced but didn't entirely stop, and that can happen too. It's not just an on-off, it's this spectrum of like how is that working, right? So with manual muscle testing, we are looking for whether a particular muscle that we isolate is going to lock or unlock. You'll hear strong or weak. There's different on or off, different ways to kind of to assess that difference. And so with that, we're looking for, what's the source of the person's health challenge, and what approach is going to best help us solve that. Muscle testing is about communicating with the body, and we can ask the body questions, and the body innately knows what is correct and incorrect. So scientists have determined that our conscious mind only makes up about 10% of our mind's overall awareness at any time, and the other 90% is, like, the bulk of our body's intelligence is stored at the subconscious level, like what we're not even aware of consciously. And so the muscle testing allows us to access what is going on at that subconscious level. So it's that stuff that's not right top of mind. So for example, it could ask you your name, your address, your phone number, and you're going to be able to pretty immediately pull that from your conscious mind and as data that you know and remember, right? But if we were to ask you, what is the top emotion that is causing you stress, and where did that initially come in, that information is more stored in our subconscious mind. It's something that you can't exactly pull from that conscious level, but we can check with the body and see where did that come in, what is this top stressor, what age did that come in at, what are the emotions associated with that. So we can kind of delve into that and ask the subconscious through muscle testing where to go with that. Let's see here. So it brings that subconscious mind to our conscious awareness so that we can begin to heal. So I'd like to now move into a little demo to show you how muscle testing works in clinic. So I have my clinic downstairs, and I want to show you first how I would do that with somebody else, and then we'll show you how to do it for yourself. So can I get a volunteer?
I will.
All right, come on up, Janet. I'm gonna have you stand right over here on this side and face me. There we go. Okay. So what I'm gonna have you do is I'm gonna have you bring your arm just straight out here, and I'm gonna just give you a little bit of pressure right here, and we're isolating the deltoid muscle right there. So I'm just gonna give it a little pressure, and we've got a nice little lock there. And we're just to start by a simple statement testing. So I want you to say, my name is Janet.
My name is Janet.
All right, so that locks in pretty strong. And now I want you to say, my name is Bob.
My name is Bob.
And that unlocks right there. So there's a quick lock, unlock. Hope I'm not bumping that too much. And so you can use that with different statements. So you can say, things like, I live in Minnesota.
I live in Minnesota.
I live in Bali.
I live in Bali.
And then we get, so you can take ridiculous things like that just to learn kind of how that works. So thank you. And so that's the basic of muscle testing. And you can use pretty much any muscle in the body that's not injured, right? So as long as the muscle is functioning properly, you can isolate that muscle. So if we're down on the massage table, we can use a leg muscle or the lat or something like that. So if somebody has an issue with their deltoid, we can use any muscle to do that. So next, I'd like to show you how you can sort of muscle test yourself. This is essentially a form of self-assessment biofeedback. And this is what people always ask me to teach because they always want to know how to do it. So here we go. That's what we get to do today. There are several different methods that you can use both for testing other people and yourself. And what you need is an indicator that has a clear switch between a lock and an unlock, or an on and off, whatever a shift that is clear and repeatable. So with that arm muscle testing, it locks in and then it unlocks. And we can do that in various ways, but there's two main ways that I use. And I find that whatever you pick, the more you practice, you get better at it. And there's different ways, and there's two that I've honed in on that I use on a daily basis. So one I find is a little bit easier to teach people, so we're going to start with that. And it's called the sway test. So I want to go ahead and have everybody just stand up. And so what we're looking for is a neutral position. So I want you to put your feet in a line. so that you're kind of,
Like shoulder width apart.
yeah, shoulder right under your hips. And settle yourself kind of over your arches, so you're not back on your heels, you're not on the balls of your feet, you're kind of over your arches, kind of in its neutral middle point. And as you're here, I want you to just say, think about, have a clear mind and just say yes, 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 yes.
Yes, 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 yes.
And see if you notice your body shifting any direction. And then try no, 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 no. Now, if you are in a neutral position, most people will find themselves being pulled forward or backwards with each of those. Did anybody feel a pull forward or backward?
Yeah. A little bit.
A little bit.
No. What's back and forth to do?
More like so this way and this way.
No, more this.
You felt that way. That's interesting. So what we're looking for here is what your neutral is. So I like to start with a yes or no, or you can say strong, strong, give me a strong, give me a yes, give me a yes, give me a no, give me a no. And as you get used to that, as you are in a neutral place where your body can move on its own like that, you'll start to feel it stronger, right? So then you could start trying to say things like my name is Krista, my name is Krista, like my name is Bob, and I get that response, right? So maybe try it again now that you've heard it a little more. Try yes, yes, or my name is, just out loud, I'll read all once. Sometimes it can help to close your eyes too, to really just feel that neutral.
My name is Diana.
I see some swaying happening. Is everybody
Yeah.
kind of feeling that a little bit?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, so were most people coming forward for yes? Was anybody going backwards for yes?
I was going to the right.
Okay, so we'll try this too, since we're all standing up. There can be a thing called switching, where the body may get confused about what is yes and what is no. So we're just gonna do a quick exercise to help clear all that. So take one hand and put it on your tailbone. Or actually no, let's go to your belly button. And now we're gonna take fingers and we're gonna go on either side of, like right under the clavicle, right on either side, so right and left. And so we're gonna go right here and you're just gonna rub. So what this is doing is this is our center, and we're telling the body this is our right and left. And so you're just rubbing those points.
Is this that collarbone point?
It's right below the collarbone.
Okay.
Right below the collarbone. So we're telling body right and left. There's your right and left. And now we're gonna go right above the lip and right below the lip, and this is our up and down. So on both fingers on, yeah, there you go. So you got two going. And then you keep one hand on your belly button and one hand back to your tailbone, and you just kind of rub the tailbone. So this is your front and back switching. So you can get switched in all three of those ways, and this helps your body center around that center point, up, down, front, back, right, left. And now, if you were kind of going a different direction, let's try it one more time. Yes, 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 yes.
Yes, 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 yes.
No, no, no. Did that switch anything for anybody? Yeah, sometimes you'll feel it more clearly at that point. So that's what switching is. So let's go ahead and have a seat again, and I'll talk through some of the statement testing, then we can maybe take questions and play around with it a bit. So statement testing is, so what we just did was a binary result, right? We get a yes, we get a no. There's not other information coming in, it's like a yes, no. So we have to craft our questions in a way that work with that. And so rather than asking questions per se, what you really want to do is make statements that we can then get a yes, no, like a true false is what we're looking for. Similar to like we do with a lie detector test, right? So you want to plan if you're going after trying to figure out where your subconscious is at, you want to plan to test several statements. It's not just like a one and done. You're kind of looking to parse it out and narrow it down as you go. So you're not trying to get an answer with a single statement, and you're trying to make the statement. Questions can introduce like fuzziness or unclarity. A statement is clear, and we're looking true, false, right? So examples of, let's go from like bad to better, right? So, is this chocolate good for me? That is a question and it's vague, right? But if we say this chocolate is good for me, that's a little bit better because it's a statement and we can get a yes, no answer. That's a little bit more definitive, right? But more useful would be something maybe a little bit more specific. My body prefers these chocolate almonds over this chocolate cherry, right? Like I've got two different things. My body prefers this one over this one. And then you can start ranking things, right? And I think that's one of the important things. This is often learned as like a party trick, and you just start going around testing things, and that's a good way to learn. Like, let's just test a bunch of things. But how useful is that when everything, like, yeah, maybe it's good for me. Is it priority? There's some ranking that needs to come into play. And then, yeah, you can get even more specific. Like, my body can efficiently metabolize and utilize more than one piece of this chocolate, more than two pieces, and you can keep, working your way up to see what can my body handle. And that's, once again, connecting with your subconscious. Like, what are your organs even saying about, like, maybe your stomach can handle something but your intestines can't, and you could really parse it down pretty quickly. Then talking about available answers. So this is, we're going to be able to get answers that are within the realm of knowledge of either the testee or the tester. So if I'm testing people for toxins or supplements or whatever, we're working with the knowledge base that I have. If there's something that I don't know about, it's not going to be able to come into that testing per se. Maybe I'll be able to get, okay, it's something that I don't know about, but my testee knows about it. And we can kind of poke a little bit and figure out where do we need to explore in that realm. And this is where too, you can invite Jesus into the testing, right? Like, a lot of times I will have my clients be like, well, why don't you just ask Jesus, like, where we need, like, what are you getting in this realm? Mm-hmm. Like, is there something that comes up? Because there'll be things in your experience that I don't know about. So there's that kind of realm too. Also, I want to touch on vials and frequency. So when I'm in clinic, I use a lot of vials, and these are they'll be like energetic vials that hold frequency, and so they look like they're just water, but they are charged with frequency. So I want to talk about that a little bit. Frequency. Everything has a frequency. Every living, non-living thing. It's the rate that stuff vibrates at. And as the vibrations come together, that's what makes everything unique and different. So every person, the chair you're sitting on, everything we put in and on our bodies has its own frequency. Some frequencies are supportive and beneficial. Others can diminish or cause breaks or disruptions in our circuitry. And so that's what we use, is these frequency vials to test with, right? So I could take, like I've got here we've got various like pathogens, parasites, bacteria. So I can take like a bacteria mix, and is this something that is going on with me? And I checked myself yesterday. I knew like this one I've got something going on with that. So I have things that I can take to support that. And so I want to give us a little time at the end here to be able to let you guys try playing with this, like touching some of the vials and feeling like, is this helpful for me? Is this not? I've got sets of, this is all foods. So this is kind of a fun one to play with, because you can just go down and try, how am I with bell peppers or shrimp, and just kind of feel that forward back. Something else I'll say with the sway testing is, there are things that are more neutral. right? And so it depends on what you're thinking when you're holding the vial, right? So let's see here. For example, you can hold a vial and it can just be neutral, right? Because I'm not moving forward or back because I haven't really told my body what I'm asking about this vial, right? So like this is helpful for me, and I get a yes, right? It would be good for me to eat, I'm holding the beef vial, it'd be good for me to eat 6 steaks, you know? And I get a no, because I qualified it, right? And like that's too much for my body to process, right? And so what you say in your head or out loud about what you're holding will affect the testing. And I think that's an important thing to designate, because if you just start holding things and waiting for a response, like where is your mind going?
Like, what's the question?
Yeah, like what's the question? And I found, like, when I was first learning to do this, like it made grocery shopping fun and interesting, because you can just grab anything off the shelf, read the label as you're holding it, and just see what your body does, right? And you can try out, like, and that's a really easy way to practice, like, the ranking. Like, you know, we know potato chips aren't the best for us, but one is probably better than the other. So let's grab 2 bags, and I would always hold, you know, like this one over this one, this one over this one, and then you just get your
So do you say that out loud?
You can. You don't have to.
But in your mind, you're saying it out loud.
Yep. In my mind, I'm being very clear. I'm testing: is this better than this for me? Right? Is this better than this for me? So that's one way to practice it, and then you can kind of go through the grocery store and try things like that. And sometimes you may get both or a no, or both or a yes, and then you try something else. But it's a fun way to just get practice in it. And if you practice the muscle testing on somebody else, then that's a good way too to kind of check your work. So when I was first learning, I had a roommate that was also interested in this as well, and so we would test ourselves, and then we would test each other to see if we got the same results. And as you do more of that, you gain confidence in your ability to be neutral and get clear answers. So I think that's one of the other challenges with this is your preconceived ideas or what you want. You got to make sure that you're separating that from the testing. So like if you're out with friends and you're like, should I have dessert, right? Like should I have dessert? And like there may be emotions about having dessert that you really want that are going to override any sort of clear testing. So as you do it more, you start to get the hang of how to be neutral, how to approach the testing from a neutral space. And then also you get to the point where you're like, I know I am too attached to this outcome. I can't do this myself. And that's where you call in somebody else to be like, okay, will you check this on me? And a lot of times with that kind of stuff for my clients, I will test on their body, but I will keep the statements silent in my head, and so that their mind can't engage and affect the muscle testing. So that's just something to be aware of, that the mind is powerful, and we can override some of that muscle testing, that physiology, with what we want.
So when you said, can I have the dessert, isn't that too general?
It is kind of a general
okay,
question,
because I was
right?
going to say,
Yeah, and you might even notice, like, when you want a certain outcome, like your questions aren't as good.
yeah.
So there's that piece too, and so it helps to, like, I've done a workshop before where we just had a bunch of different chocolate bars, or like which one's better than which, and it's like, well, the outcome in the end is chocolate, so there's less at stake. So when you're testing between similar variables and there's less at stake, it's easier to have a neutral test.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? But if you're trying to test between your favorite thing and your least favorite thing, that's harder to feel that difference.
Which is the value of a practice practitioner.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I was just wondering, can you give us an example of how some of your clients have been helped by this process?
Yeah.
Can you repeat the question?
So the question was like, give an example of how clients are helped with this, right? So I test for several different areas, whether it's a structural imbalance, a biochemical imbalance, which would be a lot of these files of foods and things like that, emotions, electrical, and spiritual, which is where the prayer ministry piece fits in. And so with every time I'm working with a client, I'll check them in what I call globally, like what is the priority thing that needs to be addressed today to help you move to your next level. And then once we figure out what that is, then we go down, okay, what protocol within that realm is most helpful. And so I have people come in with various issues, but most often there is some level of emotional issues that we need to clear. So we'll find out what that is, we'll figure out what age it came in at and what we need to do to clear that. But we can also find biochemically, we'll go through the toxin kits and maybe we find that somebody's got some sort of nematode parasite, right? And so then we figure out what vials can we bring in to support the body in ridding it of that parasite. So sometimes it's is the parasite being fed by pork or sugar or dairy? It's usually one of those three. Then we can eliminate that from the diet while you're clearing the parasite. And then what kind of killer needs to come in? Is it a specific herb? Is it a homeopathic to help that? Do we need to bind it up? And so we kind of put together full protocols of what will help move them to that next level of their goals. It also can be, for a session, we're also doing like going through all the food vials, and so maybe we're finding, you have an intolerance to dairy, and you didn't know you did, and you can make that switch in your diet, and then all of a sudden you're seeing different results. I had a family where they had a couple girls who were having some ear issues, and as soon as we cut dairy, it started clearing up. There could be sleep issues, and then we do some emotional clearing, and they start sleeping through the night. So there's all kinds of different things. A lot of the people who come to see me, once they get it and are doing it, they start to see me as their primary care practitioner, where they'll call me before they go to the doctor pediatrician, because it's like, how do we support the body in its healing journey, as opposed to what medication do we throw to suppress a symptom, right? Let's get at that root cause. And the more that I do this, the more I see that connection to what you guys all do with prayer ministry. I started this, I was introduced to it in 2008, and I've been practicing for 10 years, but I was only introduced to prayer ministry about seven years ago. And it's been this nice little dovetail where they kind of move together and you invite Jesus in, and it's just really synergistic. And I've found that a lot of the things will start out as like, maybe it's a lie you're believing, some sort of like spiritual thing that turns into this emotional thing that then turns into this physical thing that then can create a deficiency or, the environment for parasite or bacteria to come on board. And now you've got this full-blown like physical issue that really probably traces back to that spiritual root, right? And so we can work right here in this like physical realm, but if this doesn't get taken care of, it continues to resurface. And so it's been nice learning more about that root and working with people who understand that, so that we can kind of team up and make sure that once we clear the health issue, it doesn't return, right? And we keep each other clear and free of what's binding us, So.
Do you find everybody has parasites?
Repeat the question.
She said, do you find that everybody has parasites? One of the people I trained under says, you want to know what a test for parasites is? And he says, check here. If you have a pulse, you have parasites. And so, I mean, they're everywhere. And I think of them a little bit just like I would Candida or strep. Those are things that our bodies have. And we think of them as bad because we think of them when they get out of balance. And so if we're if we're healthy, if our vibration is high and we're doing what we need to do, our body can deal with the onslaught of that. It's when we get out of balance that then it can overtake, and then you're trying to climb back out and it becomes more of a challenge. And that's where we run into a lot of the chronic health conditions. It's like the things that have been there for a long time that we haven't climbed our way out of, and they just keep expanding, right? So I do a lot of parasite cleanses with my clients, but it's not always the first thing, you know, and some people, like I've had a couple who've like cleared really quickly, and others it can take a long time. It depends on how long you've had the issue, and whether you're getting re-exposed or not. Household pets are a really common place to be exposed to parasites. So if you have pets, we deworm pets a lot, but why do we not deworm people? You know, other countries they do, but we've got this idea that here in the U.S. we're more clean and we don't have the same issues, which, you know, maybe we do have treated water facilities and stuff like that, but there's still, you know, nature and all of that. So yes, I do think a lot of people do, but that doesn't mean it's a death sentence by any means.
Right.
So, aside from sway tests, I'll just mention a couple other options just so it's like in the back of your mind. The other one that I like to do is, you saw me do like an arm test and pressing. I kind of shrink that down and use my fingers. So I'll use this as the testee and this as the tester. And so I use this joint to yes, no, and it bends on the no. This one took a little while for me to learn. Like a lock and an unlock. You just have to say yes, 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 no, and feel that. And so you're using that finger, the middle finger, to press on the pointer finger. So what I like
on the no?
bends on the no. And so what I like about this one is I can do it while I'm sitting down. I can do it under a table, or like people don't have to know that that's what I'm doing. I'll use this one a lot at a restaurant and test through the menu, and like what's going to be a good option for me, because they don't always put every ingredient in your little description there. So that one's nice. So those are the two that I use the most, is the sway test when I'm standing and holding things and I can feel it, or this finger test. Another one that I've seen used, one of the kinesiologists I went to did this one a lot, and this one is, you may not know, but the pads of your fingertips perspire. And that is what they are using as the biofeedback in a lie detector test. They hook you up and they're looking for the perspiration on the pads of the fingers. And so that is the physiological response to a lie, right? Is sweating. And so if you're in a non-humid climate and you go like this, it'll feel, your thumb will slip over the fingers. And so you can say yes, yes, yes. And if you try no, 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 you'll feel it start sticking. No, no, no. So now lotion, humidity, that's gonna mess with that one, but it can be pretty quick. I've had one of the people I trained with, they had a pen and they would do this little like rubbing on the pen, and they'd feel the slip or the stick with the pen. There's a guy who has he calls it a squeaker. He's a little box, and he rubs his fingers on that, and then it'll squeak. For the sound will change. So there's all kinds of things. I had another guy I learned from, and he did this, like the rotation of his arm, like how much that would rotate, and he found that it would rotate different whether he said yes or no. So, and I think it was one of those things where he just found his he probably, had a twitch or something. He had like this body movement, and he noticed the difference in how his body responded based on the input that was given. Even like one of the trainings that you could lay somebody on the table, and this one's not a self-test, but you can lay them on a table and you can look at leg length and where the heels line up, and then introduce a variable, and the length of the legs would shift just slightly, like enough to be able to tell the difference. So it's just looking for a body response. There's all kinds of them you can look for. You can test any muscle, you can look at movement on stuff, and when you see that difference, the key is making sure that you can repeat it. whether it's on yourself or on somebody else. Like, how do we repeat that to access that subconscious mind and what the body is trying to communicate. So, any other questions? Yes, Judy.
Before you do this, do you have to pray, or does your body always have a response? Like, okay, God, I remove distraction or my own wants, and yeses and no wants, or
Yeah.
you just have to.
I do think that, so the question is, do you have to pray before you do this? And I do think that is a good habit to get into, to invite Holy Spirit into what you're doing. There are plenty of people in the world who are practicing applied kinesiology who have no relationship with the Lord. And so do you have to? I would say no. But what is the quality of your answers and responses? And I think that is something that I think where I feel like I'm called is working with believers who are interested but are looking for a safe place to connect to this realm, because there are a lot of people in this realm who are more into New Age and connecting with whether it's Buddhism or Hindu, like all the other religions, or just like atheism even. And so I do think it's helpful to work with someone who is connecting to the same source you are, and know who you're working with. And if you're working with somebody who is not, like taking it with like praying over yourself. Like I remember I would always there would be times where I'd have a check in my spirit when I was working with a practitioner who wasn't on the same page. And just knowing, like praying for protection going into that, knowing that I'm looking for answers that my body is providing. But I also have to, like, maybe this practitioner has some knowledge that I need, even if they're not a believer, right? Mm-hmm. So when I got into this field, there were not many believers in the realm. I found the one in my class, and we became fast friends, and that has been really great. But and I think it is expanding. Like when I go to some of my trainings now, like I'm running into all kinds of believers. So I think it's definitely growing, and people are starting to be able to see the separation, see the difference between what, like the modality from the spirituality piece, right? And just like a TV can broadcast a sermon or pornography, right? You can go like ends of the spectrum. Any modality can bring truth or lie.
Well, it's like separating dentistry from the dentist.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
I have another question.
Yes.
So I now meet many people, and it's like, how far do I go in prayer? And I'll ask them if it's okay to pray.
Mm-hmm.
But then it's like, and I follow the Spirit to some, and it's just like, well, then did I miss it? Or is there a way that I can say, oh, they need to know Jesus? Or would that be better in the Spirit? And probably not, because, that's better to know from a spirit rather than a modality.
Probably.
Okay.
What I found as I do this more, as I do both muscle testing and prayer ministry more, I find that they start to meld for me. But I don't know that that's for everybody right away. Like it becomes like a second nature, and sometimes there's like an internal sense I have. Like I remember when I was learning prayer ministry, I was like, my tendency was to want to muscle test everything because that was what I was used to. And I forced myself to sit on my hands and force myself to, okay, what am I hearing or feeling? And now I have like an internal almost muscle test that I would say that was more of a spiritual connection. And so I think it's something you have to develop on your own in your communication with God. Like how does that, how is he speaking to you? And they can start to meld is how I've experienced it. And I think that for me in clinic, I get more things just dropping in. in that realm because it's become almost a spiritual practice for me, right? In okay, where are we going next? And I know there's something there when ideas drop in that like I wouldn't have normally thought of, and it's like, oh, we need to, like, why am I asking you about this thing when you were 5? Like, there's something here. And it's really fun to see how that connects and how the Lord works and moves and how people get healing, right? Because that's what in a clinic, that's what we're after is healing, be it physical, spiritual, emotional, all the above, like whole body, right? So
Yeah, that's good, because if I start relying on something that's innate in me, but that's not the innate part of my ministry, it's going in the flow of how God taught me. So
Mhm.
that's good.
yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
Any other thoughts, questions? Okay, so I think at this time, I'd like to let you, do we have time to, I think a little bit of time?
like 5 minutes.
Okay. I want to let you just play again with the vials and try some of that testing, but I also want to Marie mentioned the Ignite conference that's happening on June 8th. And I'm going to get registration up soon, but if you want me to send you registration info, I have a sign up here if you want information on that. And it has our cute new logo at the top of that. So I'll pass that around if you want information on that. You can sign up for that. And then, yes, I will pull out some of these vials and you can try real quick if you want to try standing up and testing yourself on anything. The foods are probably the most fun to
Is there anything
try.
you want to say about your business or
Oh,
something?
yeah, so I'm with Intuitive Mama Wellness. I have a clinic here in Blaine, and
Is it downstairs?
yep, yeah, so split level home, so I'm on the lower level with that, and so we can take a tour downstairs if you want to see what that looks like. But I work mainly with moms and kids, but end up working with whole families. So I love working with kind of getting the whole family on board in health and healing. So yeah, thank you.
Oh,